Ben, life in prison is too soft. Do you agree with that?
No, and I think it's the wrong answer to the wrong question. The question should be, does prison reduce reoffending? Not whether it's too soft or too hard. Is it effective?
But you must agree that having satellite television and things like gym access, free to use whenever you fancy it, and a lot of people outside working hard in the community can't afford those perks.
I certainly can't now as a free man, and that's not how prison works. Only a handful of prisons ever had satellite television, and not in cells, and there isn't free access to the gym.
But the basic principle behind this, earning the right to have these perks, that's got to be a positive move, hasn't it?
It's basically jigging a policy that's been around for the best part of 20 years now. Mr. Grayling's just raising the bar behaviourally to achieve these privileges, but then lowering the privileges that actually can be achieved on the basis that people have got to positively engage. Yet there isn't a penny in this proposal been allocated towards these rehabilitative or work programmes.
Max, what of these proposals do you approve of?
Well, we published a report around about 18 months ago at Policy Exchange that called for very similar changes that the government has outlined today. And it's all about this focus on reversing the presumption that these privileges are an entitlement and something that are a right when you go into prison, and instead making it a reward. And we think that's the right principle. We think that that's something that the taxpayer can understand, as you say, when they would struggle to afford some of these perks in the law-abiding majority. But also it's about making sure that people really engage with rehabilitation. At the moment, there are no sanctions if you choose not to engage in rehabilitation and make sure that you're prepared for release. So the government wants to introduce a rehabilitation revolution. We think this is an important part, but only a part, of making that happen.
And how important are these perks to inmates?
Hugely important.
And what will shifting the boundaries do to them?
It could have serious consequences, especially the emphasis Mr. Grayling has on bearing down on the first couple of weeks in prison, insisting on wearing prison uniforms, restricting the amount of private money that prisoners can spend. This hugely limits how prisoners can keep in touch with their families. And this is fundamental to reoffending and reducing self-harm and suicide.
But do you not think it's right to deny people the right to wear their own clothes in prison? Surely a uniform is what you would expect a prisoner to be wearing.
150 years ago, I'd have agreed with you. Times change. More importantly, the country is nearly broke, as far as I can tell. And why is Mr. Grayling finding money for 100,000 uniforms and not money for educational training?
Max, taking away someone's satellite telly and denying them going to the gym more than once a week, how is that going to help them turn their lives around and prevent them from reoffending again?
Well, I think, as I say, this is about resetting expectations for prisoners. So at the moment, there are very few sanctions, if any, for not engaging with the rehabilitation programmes or making sure that people attend education or actually go out to work. And that's what these changes are all about. So it's not just about taking away satellite TV, and it's not about being punitive, because the deprivation of liberty is the primary punishment. This is actually about incentivisation of making sure that people can come out with the skills, the jobs and the knowledge that they need in the labour market to succeed on the out and to not reoffend. That's what this is all about.
And what would you say about that, about the support after you've spent your time in prison when you come out?
There is no support. There is no support in prison, there is no support out of prison. The prison service can supply work for maybe 15 out of 85,000 prisoners, and that work is trite and meaningless. But the actual rehabilitative mechanisms are not there in the prison system.
But part of the rest of the government's reforms, and something that Policy Exchange has done work on, is to actually fix that problem. So I think, taken together, combined, we can start to sort this problem out.
OK, I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there. Ben Gunn and Max Chambers, thank you to both.